Hello again, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is John. I'm a full-time eBay reseller based in Melbourne, Australia, and I'm here to help you get out of your head. So, whether you sell on eBay as a full-time reseller or whether you sell on eBay as a hobby reseller, you'll find something of value in this video. Today I want to talk to those people who sell on eBay as a hobby. To me, a hobby reseller is someone who does three things usually. They have a small capacity to operate, and by that we mean they only have, say, 3 hours a week to do whatever they do. The second thing is low frequency of sales, and that usually comes with the fact that they have a small capacity. Because they only have 3 hours a week to list and to pack and to source, usually that means they can only list 1-2 items a week, and therefore you only sell 1 item a month, thereabouts. Maybe more, maybe less, just picking some numbers, right? The third thing that tends to happen with a hobby reseller also is inconsistency. Now, when I see eBay sellers who are unsure what to do, oftentimes when they post on eBay or they post on Facebook and they say things like, something has happened, I'm not sure what to do, I'm just a hobby reseller. Or they'll say things like, my husband doesn't know what I do, I only do it as a hobby, but I sometimes wish he can appreciate that I'm trying to, make something for us. Or I'll also see people who will say that I'm not trying to grow a big business, I'm just selling stuff around the house. And then when they ask questions, sometimes the more experienced sellers who think it's a stupid question may just do the whole laughing emoji thing, and it comes across very unempathetic, like as if they have never been hobby resellers before. So I'd like to start this video by talking about my experience as a hobby seller. When I was a hobby seller, probably for about 10 years before I became a full-time seller, I've only been full-time for about 3.5 years. I remember the thrill of getting my first sale. I remember also having to ship out an item on principle that I sold for $1 that was worth more than $1, much more than $1. I remember trying to justify to the people I love that what I was doing was worth my time when I should have been studying for some other career. I also remember them looking at me going, why are you doing this? If you want to make money, you'll get a job. Don't sell on eBay. But here we are, right? And hobby reselling can be rather emotional because not everybody has the luxury and the spare time to just sell stuff on eBay 3-4 hours, 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week even, without the pressure of, a spouse wanting attention, children needing attention, extended family, health, And so I'm empathetic to that. I'm empathetic to the fact that there are sacrifices even for the hobby reseller to operate. First thing is, the moment you exchange money for a product and you're part of that, you are a business. So if you say, I don't want to be a large reseller, I don't want to be, I don't want to do 6 figures, I'm happy just being a hobby reseller, that's okay. But it's not an excuse to be a bad one. You still have to run your business like a good business. So out of those 3 things that I mentioned that hobby resellers have, small capacity, low frequency of sales, and inconsistency, the only bad thing there is inconsistency, right? And that applies to big business as well. If I'm inconsistent as a small seller, as a bigger seller, I'm going to struggle because I'm going to have more holes to plug than I have plugs to plug them with, right? So work on inconsistency. You have to be consistent, you have to be reliable so that when buyers come to you and experience a good experience, they know that when they come back again, they get the same good experience. That's just good business. If you want to stay in business at that small capacity, you have to still be consistent. There's no excuse for inconsistency. So let's talk about being small. Let's talk about low frequency of sales. When I think of those 2 things and think about any profession, there are people who are small and have low frequency and are okay with it and make good living. Doctors come to mind. There are doctors who are single operators who only work 1 day a week. And they're okay to do that because that's the life stage they're in, or there are engineers who will only take one project at a time as a single operator because they do their best work when they do one thing at a time. There are some authors who will only write one book at a time. The difference maker is that they still get business because they are consistent and oftentimes because they are masters at what they do. So let me explain. A master at what someone does really is someone completely applying themselves to the endeavor that they take part in. It's not just about being a good doctor scientifically, but it's about matching the experience. It's about being able to communicate the outcome to the patient accurately. It's about knowing how to emotionally hold the patient's hand. Those things are nothing to do with the study of medicine, but everything to do with the development of the person. So when you think about your personality, and when you think about your ability to listen to a buyer and to respond to a buyer and to provide that customer service on eBay and or other platforms, are you doing the best to develop yourself in that capacity so that whichever buyers that you get, you are giving them the best flavor of you? So that's the first one, mastery. The second one is actually likability. The best way to convey this would be, I had a friend who wanted to open a clinic as a doctor in a small regional town. And upon doing some research, he realized that he only had one competitor in that town. There was a doctor that had been there for about 20 years. He only opened 3 days a week. And he thought to himself, if I open 5, 6, maybe even 7 days because I'm younger, I'll probably get a share of that business. So then he started talking to the people in that town. He said, hey, I noticed there's only one doctor in the town. And he opens 3 days a week, is it hard to get an appointment? Started there. And he allowed them to speak. And in listening, he realized that the 3 days a week was not the issue. It was the fact, after all, they were only a small town. So 3 days a week was enough to keep up with the people needing to see the doctor. The problem was that they didn't like the guy because he was behaving complacent. He wasn't consistent in his service. The staff he hired reflected his attitude towards the patients as well. So then he realized not just by opening more days could he steal market share, by just being generally likable, by being a good listener, by being kind, he would probably end up being the doctor of the town. I'm glad to say that that is the case. And he's now also the doctor in the next town. So if you're small and you have low sales frequency, don't feel inferior when you go into a social setting, be it a Facebook group or a real social setting like Christmas coming up, right? Be proud of the fact that you've chosen a capacity that suits you, and part of that is a low frequency of sales. When you tell people how much money you make, be it $200 a week or a month, and they look at you like, ugh, that's okay. It is a small amount of money, but for the capacity that you are running at, if it matches, good. Be okay with that. And focus instead on eradicating inconsistencies and becoming a master of communication, applying yourself to the transaction for your buyers to experience you. Then also be likable, just generally likable. You have the capacity for it. I can tell you as someone who does about 30 grand in sales a month, it's a lot harder to be likable. More so because I have to give the time of day to being likable. And thankfully, being likable can be systemized, i.e., if I practice long form good responses, oftentimes I can use a text expander to, make those paragraphs appear. Thank you for contacting me. I appreciate your time, da 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 da. But at the same time, it's not the same as when you're giving a custom response to someone because you have the time of day to do that. So here's an encouragement. So I just wanted to encourage you as a hobby reseller. Don't let the smallness of your endeavor make you feel like you're inferior to the rest of us in the room. You've chosen that capacity for a reason. And if you want to grow, there are many sellers here who have been hobby resellers and gotten to that part-time, full-time milestone. And some who have even hired staff who will happily hold your hand and encourage you along the way. For those people who laugh at you, they're dicks and they've just forgotten how it was to start. So ignore them. Yeah, if you like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy reselling.